Welcome to celebrating 140 years of Melbourne University Lacrosse Club. I'm Ian Chopper Heaney. For those that don't know, Melbourne University Lacrosse Club 140th Committee Chair. Originally, this presentation was going to be done by an AI called ChatGPT, but that was knocked on the head by the powers that be. So in lieu of that, I have Monica Ashton, the Melbourne University Lacrosse Club Vice President, to help with part of the proceedings.
Past, present, and emerging, and also acknowledge any people of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander descent who might be in the room. So just to start, I just want to give a bit of a briefing of how the evening is going to run. There will be lots of exciting things in between these, but the important stuff is getting to eat. So the entree will be served at 7:30 following a few speeches. We will then have a second round of speeches and presentations. Mains will be at 8:30, followed by dessert, and then, so everyone knows, last drinks will be 10:45 p.m. And afterwards, you're welcome to walk as a group with us over to the Clyde to enjoy some drinks after that. And just so you're aware, you might be able to see the sign here, but the bathrooms are through the doors down there to the right. You can see it in green. And if there were to be an emergency, obviously exit the many doors that are around you and we can convene over there. So yeah, I just wanted to say, obviously, that this is a wonderful night, a great way for us to come together and celebrate not only the past, the wonderful past and memories of the club, but also the future of the club. And on that, we are looking to not only celebrate our glorious history, but also working closely with the university on a plan for setting up our club for success going forward. So we partnered with Heaney to provide opportunities for supporters to make gifts and support a student participation in lacrosse. You'll see some forms on your table which have a QR code for those who are tech savvy. Otherwise, you can also fill it out hard copy. The flyers outline sort of our longer term strategy for supporting Melbourne Uni Lacrosse through the establishment of a dedicated lacrosse sub-fund and the Melbourne University Sport Foundation. So we really welcome you to read through that information, and if you are feeling generous, it would mean so much to us to have your ongoing support and, enable us to have a future where we're able to create memories together, long, maybe for another 140 years beyond this one. So thanks so much for me and the current committee, and also I think I can speak on behalf of all the current players who are saying we're really excited to have everyone here in the room today, and we hope you have a really lovely evening.
I'd like to express a warm welcome to the following special guests for the evening. Tim Lee, as Director of Sport at MU, over there. Ian Marshman, AM, Guest of Honour. Tonight's speakers, Doug Fox, Paul Stiglish, Graham Fox, John Grant, John Webb, and Cindy, somewhere Dr. Cindy Lee. So hopefully they've got some very entertaining speeches for us all. It is now our pleasure to introduce and welcome our guest of honour, Professor Ian Marshman, AM. Ian was previously the University's Academic Registrar from 1990 to 1999, where he had oversight of MU sport for a number of years. He also served as a member of the Sports and Physical Recreation Committee, SPRC, which was previously the governing body of sport, as people on this side of the room would know, at the university. In 1999, Ian was appointed the University Senior Vice Principal, aka Chief Operating Officer, a role he held until his retirement in 2015. Across his career in public service, Ian has held board and chair positions for the National Youth Mental Health Foundation, Melbourne Theatre Company, Grattan Institute, Australian National Academy of Music, and is currently chair of the MU Sports Advisory Committee. He has a blue in lacrosse and captained the MU lacrosse team in 1970 to 1972. Apparently he organised a 110th celebration as well, not that I remember too much about it. He has deep connections with many of our sporting alumni and an interest in sport. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the lectern, Mr. Ian Marshman.
Well, thank you, Ian. It's Chopper. It's an extremely generous introduction, and I get the advantage of being able to talk while people are slightly more sober than they might be later on. But I hope I can live up to the hype. We've got an enormous agenda to get through tonight, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But I did, and we'll get an opportunity later on to pass on our thanks to those that have really made this event possible. But I think it might be prudent at this early stage to actually acknowledge those people that have actually done so much to actually bring us all together at our 140th. And Christine, Maverick Vanello, Nick Anthony, Monica Ashton, Don Spirison, Sean Williams, and especially Chopper Heaney. So thank you very much. Now, we're here together to celebrate Melbourne University Lacrosse Club becoming 140. That's a remarkable achievement, and I'm really glad that we're not doing it in the way we did when we did the 110th, because the 110th that Sean will remember, we had a dinner. We also had a game where the current team played the former players. It was the last game of lacrosse I ever played, and I'm still wearing the injuries. I think it's definitely not a game for 45-year-olds. So we're turning 140, and Doug Fox will actually speak a bit more about the history of lacrosse and lacrosse of Melbourne, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but it is actually important to acknowledge that in 1883, University of Melbourne decided that they needed to do something about creating sports, because the private schools where students were coming from had actually taken up the Eton tradition and actually played school sports. And there was a meeting of the Sports Association in 1883, and they decided that there would be 5 sports that would actually form part of the Melbourne University sport. And they were footy, cricket, tennis. What else were they? No.
Bowling.
No, I can't remember the 4th one, but there was lacrosse. And so lacrosse is actually one of the foundational sports at University of Melbourne. When I was playing lacrosse, we always used to say that Melbourne University Lacrosse Club wasn't the oldest lacrosse club in Australia, it was one of the oldest lacrosse clubs in the world. But we'll hear more about that later on. And apparently one of the reasons that lacrosse was actually admitted to being one of the foundational sports was that it was regarded as being gentlemanly in its nature. What interested me was that in 1884, they actually talked about lacrosse being the game for thoroughbreds. And when I picked up a bumper sticker, I was given a bumper sticker in about 1968, I thought that was fantastically modern. Anyway, I'm really especially pleased to be able to participate in this event and these celebrations in my capacity as chair of the Melbourne University Sport Advisory Board, because in a lot of ways that's the successor body to that sports association that was set up in 1883. So it's part of perhaps a fairly strong tradition at university of lacrosse people actually being involved in the University of Lacrosse. When I was around as playing lacrosse, Bill Tickner, was a legend. We'll hear more about Jeff West and Tim Lee, who I particularly welcome, along with colleagues from Melbourne University Sport here tonight. Well, Tim Lee's son actually played for some stage with CGI, and so there's a great continuity about lacrosse in the hierarchy of University of Melbourne, which is a damn good thing. I think you know about the program for this evening. We'll talk about episodes or periods of the lacrosse story by decade between now and the end of main course. And then after main course, we switch over to a very important part of the session, which is about awards and recognising people that have actually made a great contribution to Melbourne University Lacrosse Club and have ensured its continuity over those 140 years. Many of you might be wondering really what my credentials are for lacrosse, because I didn't grow up in the religion, and I only got exposed to the cult of lacrosse for 6 years. So I've got to try this evening out to justify my standing as to why I'm actually here. I've got 2 exhibits, but the first is Exhibit A. That's one of 2 lacrosse rackets I actually played with from 1967 to 1972. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. When I came to university, I had a stellar sporting career at my school, and I ended up playing in the 4th 18. And I realised when I came to university that wasn't going to get me very far in the Uni Blacks or the Uni Blues. But I'd grown up close to Central Park, Melbourne, and I'd seen right through my childhood all these people, particularly these people wearing black jumpers with red bands going around them, sort of beating each other with sticks, and I thought that was a great pastime. So when sports event occurred at Orientation Week in 1967, along with my mate Rob Osborne, who's joined us, we went up to the stand, and there was Howard Parker and I think Dave Barclay, and they sort of, and we said, look, we're quite interested in playing this sort of thing, what happens? And anyway, they got us involved. And so I then spent sort of six years with Melbourne University Lacrosse. 6 years that what I've learned is the 6 years sort of valley of death between the glory period, the Doug Fox era, when Melbourne Uni had sort of a number of Victorian and national champions, and then the later period when Graham Fox arrived and Paul Stiglitz and so on, and I found out they even won a premiership, which is sort of something we never experienced. We were during that period when I think there were a lot more universities suddenly appeared, and there only a certain number of cross players coming into university, from elsewhere and from other clubs, and so we got a bit diluted, we kept the club going, I think is the best thing we could say for those 6 years, and we drew heavily on the representation from Queen's College. I got my brother Neil to actually play as goalie for a number of years, and he brought in a couple of other players, and we did manage to continue fielding a team during those periods. But it was a remarkable experience, and in a lot of ways it was, for me, the best part of my university experience, as we used to say as senior vice principal. The ability to actually meet people outside your own discipline area, people at all sorts of different levels, and to meet a group of people that were just so generous and warm and inviting and forgiving in lots of ways was wonderful. We also had, during that time, we had the remarkable experience of playing a Japanese university team, so I played international lacrosse. We also had a visit from an Ivy League university from North America, and I think the view was that Melbourne couldn't be competitive, so we'd join up with a joint team with Monash, and we actually played with Monash. We never won any of those games, but it was a great experience. But we did keep the club going, and we had a really great time. Some of my experiences that still sort of stick in my mind is some of the memorable moments for me playing lacrosse. Firstly, it was my first game, and we were selected, so we were in the B grade, because at that stage we had 2 teams, and we were playing Coburg. and we're playing Coburg on the ground just outside of Pentridge. Near where we're inside. That's right, yeah. And it was, and I can remember looking at those forbidding walls of Pentridge Jail, and then we all lined up from both sides, and then we had a minute's silence in remembrance of past lacrosse players who'd fallen. And I was standing next to Gavin Fabini, and he said to me, "5 died last year, you know, Ian." What am I letting myself in? Another memorable moment was in that first year. I didn't have a car, couldn't drive, I was too young. But I always got to the games with Ted Rodder, because he lived not that far away from me. And Ted Rodder and his fiancée and his wife Jenny always took me to lacrosse games, and sometimes my girlfriend who became my wife Judy. And we always went in Ted's little blue mini minor. So there were 3 of us, plus our rackets, plus all our gear in the mini minor, which a really great experience travelling around. It was a very bonding experience. I do remember my first game in A grade. I think might be later that year. We played Melbourne, and I think there must have been a lot of injuries in the A grade team for me to get a game in A grade then. I was playing on Keith Daly, and Keith Daly came up to me immediately. He kept putting, "You're not going to cross any problem today, are you?" And that was my introduction to A grade. I did actually get a vote for being one of the best on the ground that day, and I kept Daly to 2 or 3 goals, which wasn't bad. I don't think we won though, Doug. I seem to be the curse. We did actually, we did actually set a record, I think, while we were playing lacrosse. It was probably the first year that I captained lacrosse, and we were still in A grade, but even though all the stars had left, and we were left with the freshers, as Doug would call us, and we played Williamstown Theron over on the oval here, up at Royal Park. And we lost 62-2. The view was that was actually the highest losing margin ever set by a Victorian club. He might have got 30 goals that day. Neil was goalie, my brother was goalie, and he would have stopped just as many as he let through. I'm still scratching my head as now we got those 2 or 3 goals. Anyway, that was memorable. Another achievement that I'd have to say that I claim to fame for is that I actually played for 6 years. I don't think I missed many games in those 6 years, and I never scored a goal. There was another game where we came back from university and we were playing semi-final against Melbourne High School Old Boys. And a guy called Bullock I was playing on there, I might remember him. He had a heart attack on me and he carted off to hospital. We kept playing. And we lost. I've got a couple of other Gavin Fabini stories. Gavin Fabini was someone that I was sort of vaguely known because I went to school with his brother. But I always remember that when we were playing at quarter time, Gavin would get up and open the pack of cigarettes and have a smoke. Half time, he'd fit 2 smokes in, another smoke at 3/4 time, and he went on to be a cardiologist. It was a different world, I'll tell you. Another time, I got my head split open, and it was over at Royal Park again. And Gavin, by that stage, had graduated to being a first-year resident at Royal Melbourne. So no worries, he just took me over and sewed me up. Couldn't get that done these days. The other great experience, of course, was university. And for everybody, I mean, university, these days you get on a plane, you go over there and you play sport or whatever, but for university for us was Sunday night or whatever, you'd get on the overland train, you'd play cards and drink beer all the way over. I think we had to change trains, we had to change engines. I don't think we had to change trains at the border, but it was just about that. Then you spent 3 nights in college, played 1 game of lacrosse, or perhaps 2 if there were 3, if Monash or Flinders were playing. And then there was just all the events that sort of went on, pub crawls around Adelaide, formal nights, having to bring all the port in the barrel and having to bring the barrel back. It really was a wonderful bonding experience. I'm going to finish now with just one, with my second exhibit. There's a book that's put out by the University of Melbourne, Sport, about a history of sport at University of Melbourne. And I think Doug has actually written most of the text, or provided a lot of the text for that for lacrosse. But Doug did say that when his group of really solid players, and I see Fergie Stewart here, and Jim Stewart, and Graham Ross, and so on. There were some magic players in those early years. But there's a note here of about university from 1960 to 1967. Melbourne won university. In 1968. The first year I played, the presence of 8 freshers marked the passing of the old guard. The report of the contest in Adelaide captured the themes of InterVarsity. First, there was the play on the field. Ed Ford, best player for the series, with dominating play on the forward and midfield lines. Russ Parker, captain, who stirred the team on with soul-inspiring speeches and reliable work all over the ground. Phil Parker, who gave great drive from the centre. And Ian Marshman, a dashing and reliable defender. And then it goes on to say, and they were all selected for the combined unities team. And then there was a play-off field. Dave Barclay, dentistry, went as the manager, handling competently all our sideline commitments. Niners, drinks, supporters, etc. But I think you'll get from, I hope from what I say, great enthusiasm for lacrosse. It really makes enormous difference to, I think, the university experience of everyone who can get to play sport, and to play sport in such a great community, such as the lacrosse community is, both within the university but also within the wider community. So thank you very much.